Hello and welcome to DataCast Solutions Introduction to KNIME for the Data Analyst. In this chapter, we're going to talk about visualizing the data from within your tables in KNIME. It supports a great deal of built-in visualization capability that we're going to be reviewing. Let's start with a simple question. Why do we visualize data? It's because the human brain is not meant to read tables. It ingests data visually much faster than it does logically. For example, look at a sample data table that I've created here. And take a look at the data, and I can see for each year my widget sales and the sales of my other products. And you can stare at this for a while and try to understand the patterns that you're seeing here. But for all the time you'll spend doing that, if I look at the visualization of it as a chart, widget sales are steadily on the incline and other sales are steadily declining for the last 10 years. In a heartbeat, I've been able to understand visually what I couldn't see in the data itself. That's why we draw charts and graphs. So knowing how to do this in KNIME is an important part of being a data analyst for you to get your point across to make people understand what they're seeing. Thankfully, KNIME comes with a whole series of different mechanisms you're going to be able to use to create charts and graphs. KNIME provides a number of different views built into the system. Right off the bat, from the node repository, if we look down here at this section of the screen, as you can see, under the views, there is the ability to have JavaScript. And all of these views are pre-built into the system. So I can produce bar charts, box charts, heat maps, histograms, line and lift, pie charts, all of the normal charts that you would expect to see in Excel or any other mechanism that you might use for generating individual visualizations. You'll also find under the KNIME Labs in here, there's a section under the KNIME Labs for JavaScript. And if I expand that out, these are some additional versions. I'm going to demonstrate a few of each one of these to us to just take a look at some of the data and show you how these charts can be created and how interactive and virtual they actually are. Now there's one other set of views that are also available, and they are the JFree charts and the KNIME views. The only notation I would give you is JFree and KNIME views are still useful right now for various plot types, but all active development in KNIME right now is on the JavaScript views only. These other ones are never going to be enhanced and will eventually be deprecated. So in terms of looking at the views, you should always focus on these JavaScript views here. They're going to be the ones that are going to be continually added to and enhanced. And you'll see great use for them inside the interactive quick forms, but we'll get to that in another chapter. But in the meantime, the legacy ones are down here under local. The ones you see right here, these are all referred to as KNIME views. They were just original box chart. They're not really interactive. They're just for creating objects pretty much as they weren't meant to be an interactive component. And then a version under here, the JFree, were again different versions of charts that were created. All of these are legacy. Don't spend a lot of time working with them. You can use them as necessary for now, but when it comes to visualization for the remainder of this class, and certainly for the demonstration of the web portal and so on, I'm going to focus my demonstrations on using the JavaScript views because they're the most powerful. All right, I've got some sample data here, and it's the same data. It's just 10 years worth of data and widget and other sales. And one of the easiest, since I got a multi-column chart here across a single value, one of the most obvious charts we typically would create with this would be a line plot. So I'll just double click to make that connection, and I'll add my line plot. Now this is a JavaScript view, so it's meant to be interactive. So I'm going to configure this by double clicking on it. And what is the column for the x-axis? Well, I'd like this to run across year.
which will also mean widget sales and other sales. I'm going to remove year and say these are the only two that I'm going to run across. Now I have with each of the tabs some configuration options that I'm going to want to put across here. The label for the x-axis I'm going to call year, and the y I'm going to tell it this is sales. And I want to show the legend, and I want to auto range the axis. Now I've got some general chart options. Scott sales totals. The last 10 years. Can change colors. I can do all kinds of other types of things like this. And what do I want them to be able to do? Do I want them to be able to edit controls? Basically, can they pan? Can they zoom? I want to enable dragging. I can turn on as much of this because I can essentially make this as interactive as I choose to make this chart to be. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to execute it. And now I'm not looking at data. There is a data port out. The data still flowed through the node, you can see. But what's of interest is the interactive portion, the line plot. That's what I want to see. And now you'll notice this comes up with an interactive plot. And since I enabled the line plot, I can move along here and see the numbers. I can see for 2015, I can see this is the total sales for my, and I can follow this along, and I can zoom. You see I've got my legend. I can, because it's interactive, I can change some of this information, allow the person to change it interactively while they're using it, before they hit the print screen or print button that you might add to this. So that's really helpful when you really want to impress somebody to make things. I can reset, but I can zoom in and say I'm interested in this portion of the data. So I zoom in here and pull it in. And now I really want to get down to just that section right there and zoom in there. And then reset my zoom and go back out. All of that was built directly into KNIME. Didn't have to do a darn thing to it to make it happen. This is where KNIME is going with all of its interactive views and all of these JavaScripts. So they're going to meant to be part of interactive dashboards. When we get to quick forms, I'm also going to be demonstrating to you how to link these charts together through events. Basically through an event or a change to a data in one chart will affect what's displayable in another. So that's also something that's coming further down the line. All right, let's take another look, and I've altered my data a little bit, and I look at the sample that I've got, and I've added one more column here because I wanted a nominal data value now. So I've added another column that says, was this considered by the company to be a good year or a bad year? Good year, yes. Bad year, no. And so now I'm going to take down here, and I'm going to connect the donut pie chart, depending on which one you want it to be. And I'm going to configure this. Now, it's already chosen the nominal value. And do I want to do a count or sum or average? I can do this multiple different ways, depending on how I go about doing it. If I want it to be a sum, then for good years and bad years, I could sum, widget sales and say that this gives me some idea. But right now I'm just going to go with an occurrence count. And I'm going to generate an image on this one so you can see the purpose, because most of the JavaScript views also are capable of generating an image for further downloading. Now, general, here's my title, it's pie chart. Do I want it to be, I'll leave it not a donut for right now, but I'll leave on most of the other control options. I'll let the user edit anything they want to edit. They can change the title, they can do whatever they want to it before they download the image. And I'll enable all the interactivity, which will mean, for example, that every time somebody, for example, clicks on an object within here, it will publish that event. And I'm going to show you in the quick forms how to take a publish event from one chart and change the view of another chart based on that. So I'm going to click, instead of just execute here, I'm going to go ahead and say at the same time, click an open view, which is going to execute it, and then it's going to open the pie chart. So I can do them both at the same time. And now it produces my pie chart. So that's the value I gave it, the yeses and nos. You can see they're selectable. I've still got my full range of settings so that the user can change how they want to do it. I can let the user switch and say, you know what, I want to render this as a donut chart instead. So look at this. This is what's really wonderful about this, is you're going to be able to create some interactive views very similar to things you see done in Tableau or Tibco, Spotfire, other tools like that. And you're going to be able to do this with KNIME as well. So again, this is just a mild introduction. Most of these are very self-explanatory. You're going to choose the chart that works right for the type of data that you're trying to create. There is, however, one additional chart mechanism that I want to explain and show you how to make use of. Now, one last step I'd like to show you is how to introduce custom colors into your chart without hard coding them inside of your JavaScript modules. And I'm going to do that by, actually, here, let's come back into the views and look at our JavaScript, and I'm going to go ahead and add a bar chart to this. And I'll configure my bar chart to sum on whether it's a good year or bad year, and I'll sum the sales of widgets and other on whether it was a good year or a bad year. And I'll execute and open that view. And there's the sum. I'm not a big fan of orange and blue like that. I don't think that's necessarily a great way to present this data. So I've decided that I'm going to put in a table creator node. What you'll notice is every chart brings forward the option of having color data. It's an optional port built in. So I'm going to put within here, within my table creator, dragged an empty table creator node. Let's put the table creator in here. And I'm going to put widget sales and other sales. And those are my two columns. Doesn't matter what they are, those are the column names. And now I'm going to put a color manager on here. And I'm going to choose two different values and say for widget sales I want those to be green. And for other sales I want those to be purple. So I can just click and assign the values that way. And now I can connect these colors up into the bar chart. So I can control again programmatically when I execute and open the views. I've now got purple and green instead. So the color manager allows me to extract this. You're going to see another area where I'm going to introduce you to, again, when we get to the quick forms, we're going to introduce a version of this where you can use this quite extensively to tie data table values that are color coded against the scatter plot values and things like that. So it gets color management and interactive charts to the next chapter are going to be kind of help tie everything we've done together. There is a library that KNIME interactively supports directly called the Data Driven Documents, which is d3js.org. It is a very powerful set of visualizations that go far beyond just simple line charts and box chart. I want to show you a handful of these. If you come to here, you're going to see in this website, the great part is this is completely documented. Everything you want to know about how to do this is written directly in. You can go into their examples. I'm going to open this in a new tab. And within their examples, which is apparently running very slow right now, I can look through different ways that they've presented operations and different forms of visualization. So I can, for example, this is one of my favorites, is the bar chart race. And I'm going to click this and let you see. What it shows you is the value of stocks as you look down here in each year, 2002, 2003, and you can see interactively the value of stocks as IBM, Microsoft, and Coca-Cola begin to battle the lead in 2005. And here Citibank and HP starts jumping up into the mix. But here comes Google in 2008, and all of a sudden Google starts running away with the crowd, taking over GE, Microsoft. Notice Apple jumping in behind them and just crushing everybody in 2012. And all of a sudden it becomes the Apple-Google race. You see how an interactive visualization like this is incredibly useful for helping explain data to people in a way that you can't do. And now look at Amazon popping in behind the mix. And look at how these companies are today and where they were back then. This is the value of libraries like this in this D3 library. It is full of very advanced visualizations that you can make use of. Another one of my favorites, as you look at different ways to show, but this one I like a lot also, is the calendar view. And in the calendar view, what they'll actually show you is, I'm waiting for this to come back up and it doesn't seem, there we go. The calendar view, in this case, I'm looking at an entire year's worth of data displayed as a heat map, essentially. So I can see 2020 through 2019 and 20. I can literally look at a multiple years worth of data and start to spot trends in the heat map. This is an incredible visualization. And for each one of these visualizations, they provide you at the bottom all the JavaScript code you need to make this happen. Literally, these are all the functions, this is all the code. As long as you're reasonably JavaScript literate, making these advanced visualizations like this is really quite simple. I'm going to show you a couple of them in KNIME just so that you can see what they would actually look like. So here's one of the examples that I really like, I'm kind of fond of. And this is called the Zoomable Sunburst. And as I'm looking at this example and kind of demonstrate how it works for you, it allows you to drill down into the data. So as you look at different things, I can click on the Query tab here, and it will drill down and show me all of these different items. And as I click then into the methods, it will drill down and show me even further. And as I click in the center, it brings me back outwards. So again, kind of an interesting way of allowing people to interact and explore the data, and all of the JavaScript and D3 library code necessary to reproduce that is right there. The only thing you have to change is the data. Instead of reading this flare2.json file, I'm going to read my own file to make this happen. So let me come back over to KNIME and say, I got some data. And I'm going to call this, I've got all of this information here, and I've got counts of number of doctors by profession across many different countries. And so just a completely different data source. And to generate this, all of this information, I literally just brought in all of this information directly. I'm importing the D3 libraries. I literally copy, cut, and pasted 95% of this code and just had to make a few small adjustments to it in order to facilitate it in KNIME. And now when I show the interactive view in KNIME, there's my same zoomable starburst. And as I look through here and say I want to drill, okay, I want to drill deeper into Italy. Well, most of the people are physicians, but I have some dentistry and within physician, if I still want to go into physician, I can see there are lots of other different types of physicians. So But what's this other healthcare professional? I'll zoom in here to say, okay, psychology, homeopathy, GPs, and nutritionists. And now I'll zoom back out and bring this out. So this basically is a demonstration of how you can basically make use of that D3 library within KNIME. You're going to find these posted on the KNIME hubs. You'll find plenty of examples. So again, you do need to be JavaScript literate, and that's not going to be everybody's strength, but if you have a JavaScript programmer on your staff, it will help tremendously to make that 5% of the code you have to customize a little bit to make it work with KNIME.
This concludes this chapter of the class. Feel free to move on to the next chapter.